What's up guys, this is James back again, and I wanted to give you guys kind of a quickie video about this weird dragon deck I used to absolutely sweep this other Edison team in the War League server and keep my team alive through the playoffs. And first off, I want to just give a quick shout out to Mika. As you may notice, this video is not as crispy as usual. The edits are not in effect. He is on hiatus and has to deal with some IRL stuff. But if everyone can just honestly leave a comment and say how much you like the edits, because I know you like the edits. I love the edits. He's a really talented person, and I would love to keep working with him. I totally understand life gets in the way, so it's not even about that. But yeah, just show love because he's kind of the GOAT, and I think we make a really good team. So shout out to Mika, and hope we get the edits back soon. And until then, enjoy the kind of lo-fi elements. But that being said, back to the dragon deck. I want to begin this story about a week prior, where I played a random ladder game against this guy named Sabi, and I'll try to throw the content up here so you can see our game. But basically, he kind of smoked me. Like, I was playing Diva Hero Beat, a deck I'm very good and accomplished with, so I was definitely like try-harding full tier 1 deck, and he totally caught me off guard with these like Raikos, Hamsters, Snowman, and the Dragon element. And this is not a completely new thing. I know Fitz used a similar deck in Deck Devastators, but what really caught me off guard at the very end of, I think, Game 3, he dropped a Caius on me. He had all these Dark Engine too, so it definitely wasn't exactly the same as Fitz's list. And, the games were what they were, but I was very intrigued by this. And really, anytime I take a weird loss like that, you got to ask yourself, like, is this just a fluke? Did my opponent get really lucky? Or is there something more to this deck that, some people might just like dismiss it right away, like, oh, I just got unlucky. But me, I'm like, oh, that actually seemed like a pretty tough matchup. Like, maybe there's something I can do with this deck that, maybe I can try it for myself and make it better. And so I have a screenshot here of actually when that happened, because I posted it in my team server, and I was like, this guy's deck was kind of cool, but his hand game 1 was super insane. He did open like Feature Fusion and Return or Solemn or something. So I basically like reconstructed his deck based on what I had seen. This is not his exact list. I made some changes in the process as well. And Spiral's, again, comparing to the Fitz list. But what's interesting, and this is not where I ended up in the final list, but what's interesting is I ended up testing this, for another couple days, and I was really enjoying it. And I was posting some progress and like updates of builds, and I was like, oh, the Dark Dragons are kind of cooking. And I was like, oh, I'm about to steal the deck from this random ladder guy, which is I a little bit did with Diva Hero Beat to Letio. So that's the joke here. But overall, like, super interesting deck. And when it came time to submit lists, I actually was pretty intrigued by it and decided that I was going to go with the Dragon deck, despite basically everyone on the team being like, James, please just play a real deck. Like, just play Vayu, just play Diva Hero Beat. But funnily enough, I kind of had in my mind that it might actually be a decent choice, because given that a lot of their team was going to be on Vayu Turbo and Dragon Turbo, maybe Light Swarm, I thought this deck could have a pretty good matchup in that. And, at the end of the day, I think I was right, because I ended up coming back from a 1-4 deficit and taking it home. So, without further ado, let's get into the actual deck. So, here we have it. This is my, let's call it Flip Dragons or Fuck Dragons. As you can see, my name in the builder is Fuck Dragons 2. I don't know why I named it that. I named decks all sorts of crazy things. But I think it was more like, what the fuck is this, than Fuck Dragons, But anyway, Fuck Dragons 2. So basically you can see there's a lot of similarities between like Vayu Turbo Engine. You have these Raiko Caius, which is just like good indiscriminate removal and kind of provides a solid backbone. You could throw this in any deck in the format. It's going to be pretty solid. But in here, like, your Raikos are also fueling your debris, you're milling Wyverns, you're milling Red Eyes, which can set up for call or the Wyverns, and you're also milling Dragon targets to make sure that those are always going to be pluses and you can use priority with them and all that. So what advantages does this have over regular value turbo? One thing is that it's not very weak to compulsory. In fact, I'm playing compulsory myself. It can play a good floodgate like Drago, which is not, quite as good as oppression, but it is better against value itself. So, well, honestly, in testing, I went like 5-0 with value, and that was one of the decks I had to beat in order to win this series. So I think it is actually quite good in the value matchup. And even though there aren't that many targets for red eyes, one little like mental exercise I might encourage you to do is like sometimes I think about like, oh, like, red eyes is just summoning Wyvern or the debris sometimes, but if red eyes are just summoning like an 1800 or 1600 token, how would we think of that card? Would that card still be good? And I think the answer is definitely yes. If it was giving you these free bodies. So even though it looks a little unconventional on paper, you're still able to synchro with the Caiuses, synchro with the debris if you're getting, or tribute for the Caius, synchro with the debris, synchro with plague, if you're getting back these free bodies, and just like a constant stream of advantage and can put some really high damage output. Your Red Eyes Wyvern together is 46, and like Iron Chain Dragon, which you end up making a lot in this deck. Um, Also, just huge bodies that are going to be really hard for them to get over. The Dark package, again, that was something the initial guy played, and Dark Armed, did I ever summon it in any of these matches or really almost ever in testing? No. So I think in the future it might be a card that comes out. But at least in my mind, my idea was like if I am milling a bunch and I have it in hand, I can probably figure out a way to make it live. And Dark Armor is obviously insane. Or worst case, it's a dragon for Drago. Or if I am worried about it being dead late game, I can always just send it off Future Fusion. Now, there's some definitely like flaws in this game plan because it is just like an early game brick, and if I don't draw Future Fusion, but it didn't cost me too much. And I still think maybe there's something to this dark engine. It would certainly free up some space though if I could cut, the crow and the trag, which I'm mostly playing for additional dark targets for when I'm milling. One other thing I want to touch on is no deep prison. Kind of similar to the Blackwing video. I think you can put out a lot of big bodies, and you don't necessarily need to protect them in that way. It's better to like protect if you have a big monster like a Red Eyes or Iron Chain or whatever. A way they might want to deal with that is something like a Brain Control or like trying to make Brionac. So having stuff like Book of Moon and Compulse, I think is better than they're not going to try to attack over it. Compulse and Book also have the nice effects of letting you either like reuse or dodge removal on Red Eyes. If they're trying to use stuff like Brain Control or any kind of deep prison bottomless, you can either bounce it back or flip it down, and that can definitely come up. And Dust Tornado, deals suppression and also just can clear way to do big damage because you can just easily output a ton of damage if you have the right kind of hand. And just some more removal, I think, is helpful in that regard. The side deck, really nothing to take note of. I think maybe at this point you're going to see a lot of my side decks end up being kind of similar. Snowmans are good against hero and also debris targets. More Dragos, they're kind of not as good as you may think. Dragos, I think, thought of as a really big perk of playing the dragon deck, but especially with my kind of low dragon count, it's hard to make sure that you always have a dragon in hand, and they can be kind of vulnerable. So even against value, like going second, I think I would only put in one, so I'd have two total. So maybe this is a card that can move around, but when it's good, it's really good. I mean, it's totally floodgated out the Dragon Turbo guy I played, and really helpful in that regard. So this is more or less the deck, and I was really happy with its performance. I mean, I'll be the first to say that I got incredibly lucky in some of these matches. I drew like perfect hands, and so would I say that this is a great deck to bring to any tournament? I don't know. There was definitely luck involved, but at the same time, it did really crush all the value I tested against. So if you're ever expecting a value-heavy meta game or whatever, I do think it could be a real deck to bring. Especially, I have a few changes in mind that I would like to integrate. So maybe I'll post a Fuck Dragons 3 sometime soon. Before we go, I just want to say a word about the Edison War League, because obviously I've mentioned that throughout this video. With this sweep of the team war took place in the playoffs, and some of you may be wondering like, what the hell is this guy even talking about? So quickly, I'm going to pull up our tracking doc here. Basically, it's like you separate out into teams. You can pick your team of 8 players, and you play against other teams every week 5-on-5. If you win 3 matches, you win the week. It's not exactly Ironman format, but I don't necessarily want to get too deep into that kind of explanation. But you play like 12, 13 weeks. I think we have like 25 teams, so it's quite a few players, 200 something players involved, and a lot of the top players playing these online tournaments are involved in some type of way. And it's similar to an NBA, NFL, or something like that, where you have a regular season, and if you get a good record in that, then you move on to the playoffs. Um, we're currently sitting in the finals after I was able to sweep the Bucks. And again, like we knew they were going to be a really hard opponent. There was a lot of drama in the background that I don't particularly want to get into, but it was pretty epic because they had one player down to start with. They were up 5 against 6, and they just completely ripped through our team. I was hoping it would be a little closer, but it all came down to me, and I was very glad to be able to clutch it for my team and keep us in. And now we're in the finals. So shout out to 10FD and the boys, even though they kind of got worked by Fuck Dragons 2. But I hope you guys enjoyed this little deck profile, and if you ever want to try this deck out, I definitely encourage it, especially into those kind of metas. And I'll put some links to the War League's GOAT format and Edison format. And I would highly encourage anybody who is, competitive minded or just trying to improve, trying to be around and chat with these talented players to join those servers. It's really a hotbed of discussion. So until next time, got a lot more videos in the pipeline, but I hope you guys enjoyed, and